folks in here. There'll be some more emerging in, but let's go ahead and get rolling. Anna, you kick us off, and I'll intro in Mario after that.
Ooh, thank you, Jay. Hi, everyone. My name is Anna Kepshire, and I co-organize Derby City Agile with Jay Brown. And our sponsors are KEP Training and Smart Data. So together they do staffing and IT services. And we are always like super, super honored that everybody keeps showing up to our virtual events. And we've, I think we've grown internationally to close to 1,400 members. So we love you guys and thank you so much. And I'll turn over to Jay.
Yeah, awesome. So like Anna said, thank you all so much. I do want to give a quick plug. We are looking to hire a Scrum Master. So if anyone's interested, please contact myself. I'll drop my email in chat. We do want to do a short Q&A towards the end. So if you have any questions, pop them in chat. I think Mario is sort of cool with interacting as well. If it makes sense, just sort of go with the flow. That's what we always do anyways. But if you want to drop them in chat, we can have those towards the ends and I'll do a little curatum of the questions. So we do have Mario Zulić from Croatia, Osiguranje. I think I maybe was close there. Maybe.
Yeah, I have a map here on the first slide to show you guys where Croatia is.
All right. And he's the Scrum Master there. I think he can give you a little better introduction, but we're super excited. I don't think we've ever had, anyone this far away from our core. And I think it just shows how much we're growing and we are thrilled to have him. So Mario, I think rock and roll.
All right, great. Well, thank you for this warm introduction, and thank you for having me. It's an honor to speak for you on this interesting subject. And towards the end, some of you will probably have opportunity to participate in our future research. So if we get there, that's gonna be awesome. All right, so let's talk Scrum and psychology. But first, let me show you where Croatia is. So a bit about me. So I am Scrum Master and psychologist from Croatia. So Croatia, as you can see, is near Italy. That maybe helps. It's part of ex-Yugoslavia. So it was part of Yugoslavia. So that's like this beautiful seaside of Europe here. So my educational background, I studied at University of Zadar. I studied psychology. I did a master's and bachelor's there. And if you think studying psychology is hard, imagine studying psychology here. So this was my university building, this last one, right towards the end here. And you could see like the beautiful islands and seaside every day from our like lectures. So that sometimes it was really hard to concentrate on what the professor was speaking because of this view. So if you ever are in chance to travel, Croatia is always, it's common destination for people all around the world to come to our seaside. Okay, so after I graduated from my master's in Zadar, I moved to Zagreb, the capital of Croatia, and started work in Croatia Osiguranje. It's a leading insurance company in Croatia's market, and we insure all kinds of stuff like this cool Rimac car at our billboard. We are very proud of that client. And as you can see here, we started with physical boards and working agreements and improvement areas. We had all over the walls our boards, Kanban, Scrum boards, whatever you like to call them. So yeah, before pandemic, we were pretty non-technological regarding our Scrum practices. But with pandemic, we moved more into online environment, as most companies did. Besides doing Scrum, I also am editor-in-chief of one. Well, we are NGO, but we mostly do lectures, public lectures, and texts regarding psychology. But we call ourselves unpopular psychology because we try to cover the subjects that nobody else will, but we find super interesting. So much less like positive psychology and popular stuff, more of underground hardcore stuff, but for general public. So yeah, I do psychology and Scrum, and somehow those two lovebirds had to meet. So when I started to work as a Scrum Master, it just seemed natural to me to connect these things, but we'll get there. So Jay, Anna, I don't know how much I need to talk about Scrum in general. I don't want to like, and I can hear you.
I think everybody attending probably works on the Scrum team. Just by kind of going through, there's a lot of my students on here, so I can kind of.
Yeah, so I don't want to like put us. Our time is limited, so maybe just go over this real quick. So as you all know, Scrum is a design of work for teams, which has certain rules and roles and events, as well as some artifacts. So we have our sprint planning, sprint retrospective, and sprint reviews, and daily Scrum as main events, product backlog and sprint backlog, and our cross-functional team. We'll get to this picture later, but for now, I think that's pretty much it. You are all familiar with Scrum, so I think that's it. Our three pillars of Scrum are inspection, adaptation, and transparency. So I think that's also very well known. If something is not clear, we can circle back at this at the end. So where the giants meet, so where the psychology and Scrum meet. So on one hand, we have like organizational psychology, which is science of human behavior and how it relates to work. It also means applying the psychological theories and principles that we find in our research to organizations and individuals to make, as individuals as well as organizations, make better results. And also in later years, we have more and more focus on work-life balance and applying our psychological knowledge and research findings to have better work-life balance. So on the other hand, we have like Scrum, that is ever-growing way of approaching work with specific rules and roles in the place of work. So one would imagine that Scrum is well researched in psychology, organizational psychology. But as it turns out, it is not. So this really surprised me as I started to work as Scrum Master, because my scientific mind went, oh, I have to read every scientific paper about Scrum to see if this works, and if it works, why does it work, or like what are maybe some moderators, mediators that I have to keep an eye on, that my team doesn't fall into these traps. And I found almost nothing. There are very limited. There is very limited research on Scrum, and it's mostly on small samples, mostly not very much quantitative as much as like focus groups and talk oriented. So in a scientific sense, it does not give that much of knowledge regarding Scrum, and that surprised me. So for me, IT and Scrum in IT, but even outside IT, if you think about it, it's connected with psychology in three major ways. First of all, it's how we work, because it designs rules and roles for our workplace. It designs how we work. It designs that we have, that you can be like Scrum Master or developer or product owner, and that you have daily in the morning, you have sprint planning, you have sprint retrospective. It's all these sets of rules. So it's pretty much work design. It's a framework, you know. So how we work, it's definitely connected both with psychology and with Scrum. What can we get from work? And that's maybe more tricky to explain, but for me, it was in Scrum, it was always emphasis on what do you get from work, and do you do something meaningful, or do you do something that is waste both for you and for company? And how do we remove waste? How we get better flow? So how can we feel better about the work we do? So that is why on our product backlog, it's always most meaningful thing on the top of the backlog. And third, what are we working towards? So where are we going? What is the goal? Scrum is really goal oriented, even if we talk about project level or even sprint level, we always have goal that we are working. So in other words, for me, this translates to three famous psychological theories. So first is job characteristic model. Second is self-determination theory, and third is smart goal setting theory. So let's talk about these three theories, shall we? I know it sounds academic and boring, but it's really cool. And why it's really cool, let me explain, because it's really easy to apply to everyday work. So we have job characteristics model. In job characteristics model, so like long time ago, I think in the 80s even, the authors Heckman and Oldham found core job characteristics that are needed to have positive personal and work outcomes. So as I go through them, maybe you can do like a little mental exercise and see how do you land these core job characteristics. Do you have them at your workplace? And if not, what can you do to get there? Because this theory is proven over and over again over the time and in different work contexts. So yeah, keep an eye on core job characteristics because they are really important. So let's go one by one, and maybe you can tell me later how did you do on these little tests. So first we have skill variety, task identity, and task significance. And these lead to critical psychological state of experienced meaningfulness of work. So what does skill variety mean? It means that you're not going to use only one skill, you're going to use different kind of skills over the time. So imagine if you are working in the factory on the moving track, and you just put salami on the sandwich, and that is all you do. You just put salami on the sandwich. You exercise nothing except your wrist, maybe, of throwing that salami precisely on the sandwich and moving on. Also, you don't have a task identity because you are not putting together the whole sandwich. Task identity means that you can clearly see the beginning and the end of your work. So you have like a chunk of work that has a beginning and the end, and you can see it as a whole and your impact on it. So you are not putting together a sandwich, you're just putting salami on the sandwich. And task significance, this can mean this means the task has to be significant. Either it can be significant either to you, to company, or to society as a whole. But task significance is really important for us to have some kind of experience, meaningfulness of work. So these three core job characteristics lead to meaningfulness. So let's go to the next one. Next one is autonomy, and this leads to experience responsibility for outcomes of the work. So autonomy in this context means that you get to say how do you want to get to the outcome that is needed in your organization and in your context. So how is this autonomy part? And feedback. So the last but not least, definitely not least, is feedback. Acknowledge the actual results of work activities. This leads to knowing how to improve yourself, but also knowing what is already good and what can be improved. So if you don't know the results of your work, it's impossible to improve yourself. Well, it is possible, but you have to rely on intuition, and that's not always the best case scenario. So yeah, I hope that you did well this little test: skill variety, task identity, task significance, autonomy, feedback, and that you are like proud of yourself and your workplace that gets you these critical psychological states. Why? Because these critical psychological states leads to lead to many positive personal and work outcomes, such as internal work motivation, high quality of work performance, job satisfaction, low absenteeism, and low turnover. So this is definitely something that we need to keep an eye on. So the second theory that I mentioned was self-determination theory. This overlaps in a great way with job characteristics model. It only adds maybe teamwork that has need for relatedness. Need for the relatedness was something that was not that was maybe a bit overlooked in job characteristics model. So our self-determination theory is one of the most famous motivation theory of today, and it explains how we have three critical needs that we need to experience in the workplace, but as well as outside the workplace. But now we are talking about workplace, so let's keep the subject there. So in the workplace, we have need for autonomy. We can overlap that with experience responsibility for the outcomes of the work, if you agree with me. We have need for competence, which we can kind of overlap with knowledge of the actual results of work activities. And we have need for relatedness. So we have to feel connected to the people that we work with. Okay, so what was our model of research when we were thinking about research? So we were thinking about this. Well, when I was thinking about like how it overlaps with psychological theories, this came to my mind. So Scrum and Agile leads to these critical psychological states, but in what way does that happen? So let's see a bit about how does that happen. So here we have our Scrum process. So let's go one by one. Feedback. We get feedback from sprint review. We get feedback from our stakeholders, product owner, and rest of the team. We get immediate feedback in delivering small chunks of work. And as soon as I said small chunks, you know where I'm going with this. Feedback is also important in daily Scrum, where we get feedback from our own team and our coordinations. And also a retrospective is a great way to get feedback, even if it is what are we doing well, but also what can we improve as a team members. So I think in Scrum we have many opportunities to get this feedback, and it's like continuously that's a gift that keeps on giving. Autonomy is most recognized in sprint planning meeting, because the team is the one that cuts off how many stories can it take in one sprint, and it also determines in sprint planning how are we going to do our work. So autonomy, I think, is guaranteed with Scrum, and also in daily Scrum we coordinate between ourselves how we are gonna get to sprint goal. Task significance is guaranteed by product backlog that is always set from a thing with the most value to the most meaningless things. So we can always ensure our team that we are doing the most meaningful task that is given to the team at this moment. This also goes for a sprint backlog, right? Task identity, as I said, we have increment, we have small chunks of work that can be delivered in our sprint. So we follow one task from beginning to the end in our sprint as a team. And skill variety, as we have in theory cross-functional team, that is guaranteed to set off skill variety in our delivery of our increment. Of course, relatedness is also important for every team, and I think every team, especially in retrospectives, we put much emphasis on cohesion and how we work together as a team, and how we work within our team, and how we connect with our one another. Smart goals. I think smart goals is very well known theory. So it is a theory that our goals, that is like research time and time again show that if we set our goals specific so that we can measure them, that they are semi-attainable, that they are relevant to us and time-based, we are more likely to achieve them. And how does that relate to Scrum? So with specific goals, we have sprint goal. The team knows exactly what they need to accomplish. We have definition of done, which also helps to get to see if we are done with something or not, to explain it bluntly. And this also goes for a measurement of our achievements with burn velocity, story points, so we can actually measure our success. Attainable, so with attainable, the team sets the goals by themselves, and it's usually a bit higher than they can achieve. So I think they always shoot a bit higher. And relevance, well, because of our backlog is filled with user stories that bring the most value to our product stakeholders or organization, I think we have relevance guaranteed. And time-based in Scrum, everything is time-boxed from this meeting to daily Scrum, to retrospective, to sprint planning, to project as a whole, to sprint. So I think in Scrum, we have much emphasis on time-based goals. So now I'm going to show you what we did, because I was not happy with what Google Scholar showed me for research results of Scrum. So we did our own research. In a team, there were Nikola Erceg, myself, and Mitja Ružojčić. Nikola Erceg is psychologist at University of Zagreb. Mitja Ružojčić is PhD at University of Zagreb. They both teach there. So we tried, as when I pitched them Scrum, they had no idea what Scrum is. But as like when I was explaining to them the basic principles, they were like, "Oh yeah, it's this theory and that theory," and I was like, "Yeah, that's what I was saying," but nobody did a research on that, so that was really surprising to me. And we did all right. So let's do our own research. So in our phase 1 that we did, we set up an online questionnaire, and we sent it off on a bunch of different platforms that is in some ways connected to IT companies. Final sample was 95 employees of IT sector. We had 2/3 of our sample was male, which was to expect. That there was a really wide age range from 21 years old to 57. Regarding locations, since our questionnaire was in English, we had people from USA, we had people from all over EU, Australia, Croatia, because we also sent a bunch of Croatian companies. Even my company, some of my colleagues were participants in this research. And we had different areas of IT, so it was not just developers, it was business analysts, Scrum Masters, and 20% of our samples were managers. So yeah, what does it mean to be an agile? That's also an important question, because in our questionnaire we had questions like, do you practice agile methodologies? And if you ask that, 84% says that they are working agile, and with that mostly Scrum. But as you can imagine, that means nothing, because this yes/no answer was not connected to not one thing that we measured. Why, you might ask? Well, because agile, as some of you probably know, is often a buzzword that makes companies appear cool and appear like appealing on the market, on the job market. But with one analysis from Forrester, 80% similar to in our research, 80% of companies says they use agile, but only 22% of them have short iterations, 60% have refined backlog, and 13% have retrospectives. So before going to results, let me just explain what did we measure and how did we measure being agile. So we did not, we did ask, are you doing agile? Because we wanted to control that answer to see if that makes sense to even ask, but as it turns out, it did not have any sense to ask that. So what we did, we put together our own questionnaire with 35 questions, which was like on a scale from 1 to 5, how much do you agree with this claim? And in that 35 sentences, we tried to capture essence of Scrum. So essence like having the role of Scrum Master, having the role of product owner, having retrospectives, having short iterations. We did like everything from Scrum guide that seemed to be like that Scrum can do it without. We put it in our questionnaire. We then checked our questionnaire with certified Scrum Masters and product owners to see if they find something that's missing. Then we updated it, and after that we put it to our research. We also find, but what was interesting, that we chose not to use Scrum language. So we did not use the word retrospective, we did not use the word Scrum Master or product owner. We use descriptive sentences because some teams may be doing Scrum, but that they don't know that they are using Scrum, if that makes any sense to you. You can have a Scrum Master without him being called Scrum Master. So that is what we wanted to achieve, to have more accurate results with this kind of measurement. Also, we put right next to our questionnaire of Scrum the one existing questionnaire of Agile, and then we saw if the two correlate, and they correlated highly. So that means that for us that was the sign that our questionnaire works, and that it really captures Agile and Scrum in its essence. So besides that, we also measured, let me just go back, we measured all of this. So we measured job characteristic model, and we measured self-determination theory constructs. So we measured skill variety, task identity, task significance, autonomy, feedback, and 3 needs that I explained earlier. Besides that, I mean, it is the perception of autonomy, not real. You can measure real autonomy objectively through online questionnaires. So we actually measured the perceived autonomy and perceived meaningfulness of work, if you catch my drift. We also measured work engagement, work satisfaction, job satisfaction, and I think that's pretty much it. So let's go to the results. So results showed us that correlation with these questions, are you working Agile or not, was nothing with these outcomes that we measured. So it was 0. But if we took our Scrum questionnaire with 35 questions and correlated it with all of these outcomes that I explained, so we got this. Greater use of Agile practices has been associated with basic dimensions of work from job characteristic model. Every single one. So greater diversity of skill use, clearer identity, and greater importance of the work tasks, experienced autonomy at work, the amount that feedback that people perceived that they were getting. In regards to our needs, participants who had greater results on a Scrum scale, they also reported meeting the needs of autonomy, competence, and relatedness from the work. And they also showed higher job satisfaction, work engagement, and job performance. Maybe just a note on job performance that it was self questionnaire of job performance. We did not objectively capture their job performance, but they perceived that they were doing a better job. Like how well do you do your job from 1 to 7? They had a higher score. But job satisfaction, that's well, all you can do is ask someone, are you satisfied with your job, and how much do you engage with your work? So this was really optimistic results for us. This was really something really positive that we got out of our research. So what does this mean? Maybe to sum it up. So it appears that Scrum is more than a buzzword, right? This job design leads to greater benefits of the employees and greater productivity, but it is only that way if Scrum Agile practices are implemented the right way. If you implement it poorly, that's where you get the part of our sample that got the answer, are you working Agile? Yes. and then got the low score on our Scrum scale. Like, yes, you are doing Agile, but what exactly are you doing except saying that you are doing Agile? So that's what we are getting there. And we have to know that these are preliminary results, and more research is needed. And that's why we are researching implementation of Scrum Agile practices in naive teams. So this is our phase 2. And what do we need? So that's this is my part. And if some of you can help us with this, it would be great. Please contact us. We would be really honored and grateful for all the inputs we can get. So what do we need? We need some kind of connection with the team. So that can be an Agile coach, CEO, CTO, Scrum Master, whoever has some team that is not working Scrum, it's only beginning to work Scrum. Why? Because what we got in this phase 1 is correlation. So we got Scrum is correlated with this, but we don't know if Scrum caused it, or is it just all the cool companies are using Scrum and all the cool companies already have cool outcomes of the work. So it appears that Scrum is causing it, but we have to check to be sure, right? So what we want is to measure these outcomes with the team before they know Scrum, and then like 3 months after using Scrum, and then 3 months after using Scrum, right? So that's what we expect. Like, what can you expect to get 3 questionnaires in 1 year to fill out? And they're gonna be like 10-15 minutes. It's not that not that not that big of commitment, I would say. And what can we offer besides our forever gratefulness? We can also offer personal feedback on your results, on how did your teams scored on our measures. So that can be maybe of benefit to you and your company. So if you are interested in phase 2, please contact me in any way for research white paper and for further communication regarding our research. So we have me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, email. I can also send all this contacts to Anna if she wants to share it somewhere, or Meetup maybe. So yeah, I think that's pretty much sums it up. I am looking forward for some kind of discussion now. We have still time, I think. Yeah, we're only 30-40 minutes in, so probably. Yeah. So yeah, now discussion time, and maybe some of your feedback, and how does this seem to you? Does this make sense at all? And if not, why not? And if you have any questions, feel free. Okay, let me just stop our sharing my screen. I can go back to some slides if needed.
And if anybody wants to sort of open up let's see, someone has their hand raised. Let me unmute there.
Yeah, I wanted to know if you can share the like the link, like you mentioned before, if you can share your contact on the. Someone just said it, so we can get it.
Oh, on our chat here.
I'll also be sending out a message to all the group, and I'll include all the contact information if they want to participate.
Yeah, I'm just gonna.
So it'll all come via email as well.
Yeah. Okay, so this is my email, and you can find me on LinkedIn. I can link my profile to have it here. Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah, so this is my. All right, so we have some hands up.
Richard?
Yeah, so my question is our company's already agile, so we've kind of missed the bus on this research. But if you had a LinkedIn post, I would be more than happy to share it for my profile.
Thank you so much. Yes, we will probably, we already did for a phase 1. We probably do a call out for researchers. We can connect on LinkedIn. So I'll just share it with you as soon as we share some like call for phase 2. Let me just. Okay.
Mario,
Thank you.
in your research, was there any identifying, and I don't think I missed this, but apologize if I did, sort of segmentation of industry?
Oh,
So what we did was it was small enough sample so we can segment it. Like it would be if we segment it enough, it would be really too small to have any conclusions that is meaningful in any way. But that's why we did with all 95 of our participants. But what we asked them, and maybe we will use this in our some later analysis, we did ask them for position that they were on. So we have info if they are developers, IT business analysts, or I don't know, Q&A or Scrum Master. So we do have that information, but I don't think there were enough of different roles to have kind of separate analysis for different roles. But
Yeah.
that would be, yeah.
And I guess it would also be interesting to look at the data between smaller companies and larger enterprise companies as well.
Yeah, we did ask how many employees does your company have? So they're like until 0 to 50, 50 to 100, and we did also that segmentation. That's what we call demographic data. So we always kind of collect that as well as like gender information and age information. The size of company and organizational psychology is important variable to get. But again, we had like, because it was our first phase, we measured a lot of variables. So it was a lengthy questionnaire. Our second phase is going to be shorter. I assure everyone it's going to be like 10 to 15 minutes, but the first phase was 20 to 25 minutes. So we kind of had, usually in psychology, the men are less willing to participate in research in general. So in every research, as a psychologist, you have like, in every research, you have 2/3 of women and 1/3 of men, if you're lucky. And we did our study on an industry that is male dominated. So we were like, fingers crossed. And we were like, even with our 95, we're like, oh, like, close it. It's enough for analysis. Let's do it. Yeah, but it took us time to get to 95.
Kirk?
Yeah, so I noticed that you use the word autonomy front and center in your presentation. I'm wondering if you could compare your work or your findings to Dan Pink's autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Is there any comparison at all to be made there?
I am not that familiar with his work so that I can make a comparison. I know about the book. I had a recommendation for it, but I am not quite sure. But I can explain what this autonomy in this context means. So maybe you can see if it goes in the same directions. So autonomy is one of the, in organizational psychology, we find that autonomy is one of the main predictors of work engagement and work productivity and motivation for work. In this sense, it means about that you can decide how are you going to do your work, but you also, with that comes the responsibility of way of doing the work. But so it's like opposite of micromanagement in our sense.
Yeah. So that's pretty much the same as Dan Pink's philosophy. You'd call that a philosophy or what?
Well, I think it's a way of work. It's one approach. It's one approach.
Well, maybe you're calling it a scientific viewpoint because you've done a study on it. So maybe it's not. Maybe it's more than a philosophy. Yeah.
For us, it's science because it's proven to be an effective work approach. And I mean, maybe it is a philosophy in theory, but it's philosophy that it has good outcomes if put in practice.
It's proven.
So,
yeah,
it's proven to work. So if you have guaranteed autonomy at your work, it's really gonna help your teams. And that's because even in Scrum Guide, it says like it's autonomous cross-functional teams. It's autonomy is written in Scrum. So it's really important in Scrum, and I think it benefits a lot for the teams.
Yeah, I think a lot of Scrum teams miss that. They think they're doing Scrum, but if you don't understand the autonomy, mastery, and purpose aspect of it, then you're really doing cargo cult Scrum.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, I agree. I agree there. Yeah.
I think, Princess, do you have a question as well? No? Okay, I'm sorry. I thought I saw you raise your hand earlier, so I didn't know. Cool. Any
Uh,
other sort of open discussion points, or Mario? I mean, we got Tom. We can talk about
yeah.
whatever you want.
Well, no, maybe some feedback, Jay, and how did you? Yeah, I want to ask actually the 5 dimensions. How did you core characteristics? How did you guys did all those core characteristics? I can share it back if you forgot what they are, but the ones we talked about that I asked, like mental exercise. How did guys, and maybe some other people can also chip in. How did you guys did on this? Let me just share screen to like get. Wait. So these 5 bad boys: skill variety, task identity, task significance, autonomy, feedback. What are you most grateful, or then is there something lacking in your work environment?
So for me personally, skill variety is probably the most correlation to everything in the right column there. It's something that you use a great example of a like a production line, and
Yeah, production line.
it's the same thing, the salami on the sandwich. And I think
Yeah.
that for me personally, I think the ability to showcase a lot of different skills is something that improves my work life in general. I don't specifically work within a Scrum team consistently, so some of these others might not be as identifiable. But I do like the way that you have this broken down, and you can sort of look at each one of those individually and say, where am I personally not getting the most benefit, and then on top of that, like, how do I try to improve that?
Yeah.
Whether that's like me going over this with my other, team to bring this to light, to say, hey, what do you think about this? I was in this meetup, like, where do you feel you all are great at? And it could be a really good discussion point that you could maybe hash out something you didn't even know was underlying issue.
Yeah.
So
It's and if I think it can be a good starting off point for discussion with the team, but also with the management. I did meetup similar to this one. It was a meetup of Atlassian days, because guys who implemented Jira in our company, they heard about like what kind of work and research I do, so they asked me to be a guest there. And I was like, no problem. But there was like mostly managers there, so they were like, what is this? They got really interested about this, like, I never heard about this. Like, do my people have this, and how can I assure that they got all these characteristics? Because it's if they have it, they're gonna do a better job. So yeah.
So how do you and I think that's a great point. Like, you should do like a health check, basically. Team health check is what I would call it. You talked a little bit about work-life balance.
Yeah.
And I'm curious if you wanted to elaborate on that, because I know that during the presentation you stayed on mostly the work part.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because Scrum is mostly on the work, because, well, I use Scrum in my personal life as well, because once you fall in love with Scrum, you do everything by Scrum. But yeah, well, I mentioned it in a context of our organizational psychology, and with time, work-life balance had become more important in the study and research of organizational psychology, because it was shown that how well it correlates with also work engagement. Negative correlates with burnout, and it's one fun finding for me was that people who work more hours don't do better job. because as more hours you put in the day, the decisions that you make on the end of the day are getting worse and worse, because you have less mental energy to do them, and you are more prone to burnout than like work engagement, like healthy work engagement. The people who can set who are like prone to their work and are motivated for their work, but do a clear cut from their personal life to their work life, they have the best result in like positive outcomes, but also like in performance measures and in personal outcomes for you. So they are less prone to burnout and overstressing about the job. Yeah, somebody wrote having boundaries, and that's with some team members I have to go over this, like, dude, just because you work 12 hours a day doesn't mean you're doing a great job. I mean, it's good if you want to, but I think that's because we developed this hero culture, you know, and you have to suffer for your job to be recognized. And I think that's really unhealthy approach that some companies take. And that's why I think consciousness about these research findings that organizational psychology has is really important. So, yeah.
I'd be interested to see kind of what happens with Tesla, because I think they're demanding everybody go back into the office.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be
so
fun.
that would be kind of cool to like take a case study of the before and after.
Yeah, that's
Just the
they're
mindset
doing,
around it.
natural experiment. Yeah, they're doing experiment in natural environment, which is great for researchers, but I don't know if it's gonna be great for Tesla as well. We'll see. We'll see. Kirk, do you have something to add?
Yeah, this may be off topic and let me know if it is, but I'm wondering if you did any research related to overbearing product owners or overbearing Scrum Masters and how that would affect the autonomy of the development team, the Agile or Scrum development team. Any research there?
So no research yet. There are, like, yeah, as I mentioned earlier, there's not much research about Scrum in general. But this actually is a great topic for a research, and it would be for starters maybe just to like set up a few focus groups and see how it affects them. But I think the relationship between product owner and team is. I saw from my personal experience that because I worked with different teams, and the relationship with product owner was different in each team, and it always had a great impact on how the team worked, because sometimes they collaborated with product owner, and sometimes they were like us versus him, because he was overbearing, he was pushy, he was not understanding, not respecting the team, not trusting the team that they are delivering the best that they can, or he was always like questioning their like how complex something is, and the product owner did not have a technical background, so that was really for team frustrating, and they did like backed up from him, and it was a clash. We actually had to change the product owner with time because it was just not working. It was dysfunctional. So yeah.
Okay, can
We
you make
once had-
similar comments about the Scrum Master? Have you found overbearing Scrum Masters?
So in my company, I was the first Scrum Master. I had a coach here, and everything I learned from my coach and from other educations after. So it was, I think it's maybe too subjective for me to say from my part, but I have team of Scrum Masters, and I think I think it also depends on type of Scrum Master you are and a team that you have. So
Yeah.
sometimes different teams have different needs. Some Scrum Masters fall into a pit of being like a mom of Scrum team, which I do not recommend, but some teams want that, and some Scrum Masters like enjoy that they like a mom, and nothing can be done in team without them, and not even daily meeting or something, and they are proud of that. and I don't think that's a good approach. But I found that, and if you change that Scrum Master to somebody more assertive and more autonomous, then the team could be like, what is this? But I think with time, I think with Scrum Master, it's maybe a bit easier because I think they have more unifying goal with the team, and that is like to bring the best quality to the product and to have cohesive team that works together as one. And they maybe have a less like politics in them, because product owner has to bring all the stakeholders' wishes, and Scrum Master is like free of that burden. So maybe it's easier to fix Scrum Master and team relationship, but I think they have to work on it. So they have to like see maybe in retrospective, like what is the mission of Scrum Master in this team, what is Scrum Master's expectation of the team, and how these two differ. Maybe that could be a good exercise to fix this. It's just one of many exercises that you do for this relationship. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you.
No problem.
Right. Anyone else? Oh, we have a comment here. Let's see. Oh. Let's see.
I once had Mario, I had someone in our CSPO, Certified Scrum Product Owner class. And he, in the breakout room, he said, my team does best when I tell them what to do. And I messaged Chet that the quote, and Chet goes, with his head. So, you know, and it's, I know the organization pretty well, and it's pretty right on. So it's, you know, I'd be curious to see, like, with the large companies that implement SAFe compared to, like, you know, some other, you know, smaller organizations on the studies and the mindset and the people around it.
Yeah, I think the size of the company, even if from my experience, like my best friend had a startup, and its easiest way, like easiest place to implement Scrum is when you have 5 guys in the room. That's because you have end-to-end picture at all times, and everything happens there. But if you have I work in an organization that has over 2,000 employees, and in our IT department has around 120 people. So that's like big machinery, and with like every major or every minor change that requires a hell of a path, you know, to communicate. So yeah, I think the size of organization is of great importance, and maybe moderators for these correlations that we found. And I think I would really like in our further research try to capture that.
Yeah, that would be that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll definitely share it with the group, and I'll put it on my LinkedIn as well. So anything we can do to help your, you know, gain more people and a bigger pool, we'd love to help. Is anyone else? This is awesome, Mario. Thank you so much. I found it very insightful.
Yep. No problem. I'm glad it was.
It's a cool subject.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. Now we're getting close to our time box. So yeah, but it was really. I'm really glad, you know, that I got to be here, and I hope that you got something out of this as always. And yeah, I think that's it. And feel free to contact me on my LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, email, whatever fits you best. And if you want to get in our phase 2 research or recommend us to someone, that'd be awesome and great.